My name is Alex Thorne. As a protection ranger with the National Park Service, my jurisdiction is the vast, often unforgiving wilderness of Olympic National Park. For nearly a decade, my duties have been a mix of law enforcement, emergency response, and resource management. You learn to read the forest, to understand its rhythms. But more importantly, you learn to read the silence when it's wrong. The call came in on a Tuesday morning in late October. The rain was relentless. We soon discovered why. A steady drumming on the roof of the ranger station that had been the soundtrack to my life for the past week. Dispatch patched through a woman named Clara West from Portland. Her voice was tight with a carefully controlled panic that I recognized instantly. Her brother, Julian, was overdue. He'd gone into the Haw for a 3-day solo hike, a trip he'd made half a dozen times before. He was supposed to have checked in the previous evening. He hadn't. My mind immediately began running through the checklist. The first steps of any SAR operation. I needed to determine the search urgency. Julian was experienced, he was well equipped, and the weather, while miserable, wasn't life-threatening for a prepared hiker. But he was alone. That elevated the urgency. "Mom, I'm going to ask you a series of questions," I said, pulling up the digital version of the lost person questionnaire on my monitor. It's a document we use to build a profile, to get inside the head of the person we're looking for. I started with the basics. Julian West, age 28, 5'11", 175 pounds, athletic build, brown hair, blue eyes. Clara confirmed his trip plan. A 3-day solo photography, hike starting on the Hoh River Trail, aiming for 5 Mile Island and back. While she spoke, I radioed dispatch to have a patrol check the visitor center lot. The confirmation came back in minutes. Julian's blue Subaru Forester was there, cold and quiet under a film of rain. Every piece of data is a breadcrumb that might lead us to him. Does he have any known medical conditions? I asked. Any history of depression? Any personal problems he might be trying to get away from? No, nothing like that, Clara said, her voice wavering slightly. He loves it out there. It's his happy place. He's a photographer. He just posted something yesterday afternoon. It was the last I heard from him. My fingers paused over the keyboard. A social media post. Can you tell me what it was? A picture, she said. It was strange. I didn't know what to make of it. Can you describe it for me? There was a pause, and I could hear her scrolling on her phone. It's a staircase. Just a set of stairs in the middle of the woods. They're white and they look perfectly clean, like they don't belong there. They just go up and stop. They lead to nowhere. I felt a cold knot tighten in my stomach. I'd heard the stories. Every ranger has. Campfire tales, internet creepypastas shared by seasonal staff, the weird, unsettling phenomenon of staircases, found deep in national forests where no structure had ever stood. They were a modern myth, a spooky story for a dark night. They weren't supposed to be real. What was the caption? Ms. West. Her voice was barely a whisper. He wrote, found something that shouldn't be here. The geometry is all wrong. She took a shaky breath. The geo tag was corrupted. It just shows a string of errors. I finished the report, my movements feeling stiff and automatic. The objective facts of the case were now contaminated by something irrational, something that had no place in an official document. But it was the last point of contact. It was the key piece of evidence. I assembled my hasty team myself, a younger ranger named Ben Carter, and a volunteer, Maria Diaz, both sharp, fit, and well trained. We geared up and headed out. The moment we stepped from the trailhead into the forest proper, the world changed. The sound of the rain was different here, muffled by the thick canopy. The light filtered down in a diffuse, lurid green, making everything look sickly and submerged. The air was heavy, saturated with the smell of damp earth and decay. We moved fast, our boots sinking into the soft mulch of the forest floor. But as we pushed deeper, an unnatural quiet began to settle around us. The normal chatter of the forest, the scolding of a squirrel, the call of a Steller's jay, the rustle of unseen things in the undergrowth, was gone. There was only the drip of water from the massive ferns and the sound of our own breathing. It was a silence that felt active, a silence that was listening. I've spent my life in the woods, and I know the difference between quiet and the profound, oppressive stillness that comes when a predator is near. The forest was holding its breath. It felt like we were being watched, not by an animal, but by the trees themselves, by the ancient, silent intelligence of the place. We found Julian's pack about 4 miles in, 100 yards off the main trail, dropped next to a colossal nurse log that looked like the fossilized spine of some long, dead leviathan. This was his point last seen. The rain had lessened to a drizzle, but a thick, cold fog was rolling in from the west, swallowing the forest and shrinking our world to a radius of 50 feet. Visibility dropped to near zero. The air grew colder. Fan out, I ordered, my voice sounding small and thin in the immense quiet. Eyes open. He can't be far. Ben moved to my left, Maria to my right, our headlamps cutting uselessly into the swirling gray. And then Ben stopped. He didn't call out, just froze. I moved toward his position, my heart hammering against my ribs. What is it? Ben. He just raised a hand and pointed. I followed his gaze and my blood ran cold. There, in a small, unnaturally clear patch of ground, was the staircase. It was exactly as Clara had described it, made of a smooth, white material that looked like bleached bone or marble. It rose out of the mossy earth, pristine and utterly alien. It was untouched by the rain, free of the moss and grime that coated every other surface in this forest. It consisted of 12 steps leading up to a small platform that opened into nothing but empty, gray fog. It was an object of impossible logic, a wound in the fabric of the world. We stood there, the three of us, paralyzed. My training, my experience, my carefully constructed rational view of the world. It all dissolved in the face of that silent, inexplicable thing. The feeling of being watched intensified, pressing in on us from all sides. It was the forest, the stillness where the trees watch. And we had just walked into its parlor. For a long moment, none of us moved. The world had shrunk to this single, impossible tableau. 3 search and rescue personnel, frozen in the mist, staring at a structure that defied all logic. My training screamed at me to act, to impose order on the chaos. But my instincts were screaming something else, entirely. Run. It was the classic psychological split you hear about in survival situations. The rational mind wrestling with pure, primal fear. One part of me was cataloging the scene, unidentified structure, potential evidence, proximity to the point last seen, while the other was simply drowning in the sheer wrongness of it all. Thorn. What is this? Maria's voice was tight, strained. She was a rock, usually. A volunteer with more field hours than some of our paid staff, but her composure was cracking. I forced myself to breathe, the cold, damp air stinging my lungs. I don't know, I said, my voice coming out steadier than I felt. Treat it as a potential crime scene. Ben photos everything. Wide shots, close-ups on the base, the steps. Maria, start a slow, circular sweep. Look for footprints, drag marks, anything. My orders were a lifeline back to the world of procedure and protocol. A way to fend off the encroaching panic. Ben fumbled with the weatherproof camera, his hands shaking slightly. Maria nodded, her eyes still fixed on the staircase, as she unclipped her GPS to mark the location. The silence pressed in again, heavier than before. It wasn't just the absence of animal sounds anymore. It felt like the air itself was absorbing noise, muffling our movements, swallowing our words. It was a phenomenon I'd read about, in accounts of extreme isolation. The sensed presence, a feeling so powerful it becomes a physical weight. We were not alone here. The forest, the genius loci, was aware of us. As Ben's flash cut through the gloom, illuminating the stark white of the steps, I saw something at the base, half hidden in the moss. I knelt, my glove touching the cold, damp earth. It was a camera. A high-end DSLR, its body muddy but the lens miraculously intact. Julian's. I've got his camera. I called out, my voice low. Ben and Maria converged on my position. I carefully worked the memory card out of its slot. Our field kit included a ruggedized tablet for just this purpose. As the device booted, the 3 of us huddled together, the small screen, a tiny island of light in the oppressive gray. The first photos were predictable. Majestic shots of the rainforest, the massive trunks of Sitka spruce and western, hemlock draped in moss, the filtered green light. Then, the images changed. He had left the trail. The photos became more focused, tighter, centered on odd rock formations, gnarled roots. He was tracking something, or being led. Then came the first picture of the staircase, taken from a distance. It looked just as it did now, alien, clean, impossible. I swiped to the next photo. He was closer. The next, closer still. He was circling it, documenting it from every angle. Then the photos started to get strange. The perspective shifted in ways that made my head spin. Angles bent unnaturally. Lines that should have been straight appeared to curve. The top of the staircase seemed to recede in one shot and loom impossibly close in the next. It was exactly what his caption said. The geometry was all wrong. It was like looking at a physical representation of non-Euclidean space, a place where the fundamental rules of the universe no longer applied. "My God," Ben whispered, his face pale in the tablet's glow. What was he seeing? The forest seemed to darken around us, the fog coiling like a living thing. I felt a wave of dizziness, of disorientation. For a terrifying second, the trees around me seemed to shift, the path we'd taken to get here no longer clear. It was a classic symptom of woods shock, the catastrophic breakdown that happens when your internal map ceases to match the reality around you. But this wasn't just in our heads. The forest was doing this. It was a trap. "Stay close," I ordered, my own anxiety a cold knot in my gut. "We stick together." I kept scrolling through the photos. There were dozens more, each more distorted than the last. Close-ups of the smooth, seamless material. Shots looking up the stairs into the blank, gray fog. A photo of his own hand, held out against a step, the flesh of his fingers looking strangely warped and elongated. He was documenting his own descent into this madness. Then, I reached the final image. It was different. It was perfectly clear. The focus sharp, the geometry stable. The photo was taken from the top of the staircase, looking down. Looking down at the very spot where we were now huddled. In the photo, cast in the same eerie, fog, diffused light, stood three figures in ranger gear. They were staring up at the camera, their faces masks of pure horror. It was us. It was me, Ben, and Maria. My breath hitched in my throat. I looked at Ben, at Maria. Their eyes were wide, reflecting the same impossible truth. I looked back at the screen, my thumb hovering over the image details. The timestamp was there. It had been taken yesterday afternoon, at 15:48, less than 20 minutes after Julian had uploaded his post to social media. A low sound echoed through the woods. It wasn't a growl or a bird call. It was a faint, melodic humming. A chorus of voices that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was a sound that didn't belong. A sound that pulled at the edges of sanity. We hadn't just found the last known point of a missing hiker. We had walked into it. The staircase wasn't just an object, it was a place. A place where time, like the geometry, was broken. And now, I realized with a dawning, soul-crushing terror, it had us, too. The tablet slipped from my numb fingers and hit the mossy ground with a soft thud. The screen, showing the impossible photograph of us, flickered once and went dark. For a heartbeat, the world was utterly silent. Then the humming returned. Louder this time, a resonant frequency that vibrated not in our ears, but deep within our bones. It was a sound that felt ancient, a chord struck in a place outside of time. "This is a trap," Maria whispered. Her voice ragged. She was a seasoned volunteer, someone who had faced down rock slides and hypothermia without flinching, but her face was ashen. "This whole place is a trap." This she was right. This wasn't just a location, it was a presence. A genius loci that had become aware of us. The forest itself was the predator. The trees, silent and immense, were no longer just flora. They were sentinels of a malevolent consciousness. The paths we had followed felt like They were intentionally laid, the unnatural quiet, a method of herding us toward this clearing. The air grew thick, heavy with a pressure that felt like the bottom of the ocean. The fog coiled around us, not as a weather pattern, but as an appendage, isolating us, erasing the world beyond this small, terrible stage. "We need to move," I said, my voice tight, fighting the wave of psychological vertigo that threatened to pull me under. The split in my mind was widening into a chasm, the trained ranger screaming protocols, and the primal human screaming in raw terror. Now. But when we turned, the trail was gone. Where there had been a clear path through the ferns moments before, there was now an impenetrable wall of ancient, gnarled trunks and thick, thorny undergrowth. The forest had rearranged itself. It had closed the door behind us. Panic, cold and sharp, began to set in. Ben started to hyperventilate, his eyes darting around wildly. "We're not getting out," he stammered, his words tumbling over each other. "It knows we're here. It's been watching us the whole time." The humming intensified, and a soft, pearlescent light began to pulse from the top of the staircase, cutting through the gray mist. It was a serene, inviting light, a beacon in the oppressive gloom. The humming shifted, the discordant notes resolving into something that was almost music, a melody that promised peace, an end to the fear. It was a lure, a supernatural trap, woven from sound and light. Ben's frantic eyes locked onto the light. His breathing slowed, his panic replaced by a placid, empty calm. "Julian," he whispered, his voice suddenly devoid of emotion. "He's up there. He found the way out." "Ben." "No." I grabbed his arm, but he pulled away with a strength that was shocking. He took a step toward the stairs, his movements stiff and unnatural. "Don't you hear it, Alex?" he asked, his voice taking on the melodic, layered quality of the humming. It was his mouth, but not his voice. "It's the heart of the forest. It's calling us home." He placed his foot on the first pristine white step. The moment his boot made contact, the humming surged, and a visible ripple ran through him. It was a transformation, insidious and absolute. His form seemed to waver, the lines of his body blurring at the edges. His skin took on the pale, seamless quality of the stairs, and his eyes, once blue and full of life, became gray, empty pools reflecting the swirling fog. He was being unmade, absorbed into the fabric of this place, just as the myths tell of nymphs becoming one with their trees. He was becoming part of the forest's monstrous anatomy. He took another step, and then another, his ascent slow and deliberate. He didn't look back. He was already gone. I knew with chilling certainty that to follow him, to even touch that staircase, was to be lost forever. It was no longer a search and rescue. It was a desperate primal flight. I grabbed Maria's arm, my grip bruising. "We run," I choked out. "We run, and we don't look back." We turned away from the sight of our friend, being devoured by a place that shouldn't exist, and plunged into the shifting, hostile woods. We crashed through undergrowth that tore at our clothes and skin, our feet sinking into moss that felt like it was trying to hold us fast. The forest was a labyrinth, its geometry twisting around us, time itself seeming to stretch and warp. Behind us, the beautiful, terrible music rose to a shriek of fury. The sound of a predator denied its full meal. We ran until our lungs burned and our legs gave out. Then we crawled. We didn't stop until, by some miracle, the oppressive silence broke and we heard the distant, beautiful sound of a highway. 2 days later, a different SAR team found us wandering along a service road, miles from Julian West's last known point. We were dehydrated, hypothermic, and in shock. We couldn't account for the lost time. We couldn't explain what happened to Ben Carter. The official incident report is a document of careful omissions. It lists Ranger Ben Carter as missing in action, presumed victim of a fall or exposure during a sudden, unforecasted storm. Julian West remains a missing person. The case is closed. But I know the truth. I know that the forest is not just a place. It's alive, it's ancient, and it's hungry. It has Julian, and now it has Ben. Some nights I wake up in a cold sweat, the phantom sound of that impossible. Melodic humming echoing in my mind, a symptom of a trauma that has no name. I left a part of my soul in that forest, in the stillness where the trees watch. And I know, with a certainty that haunts my every waking moment, that it is still there, waiting. The official report was a masterpiece of bureaucratic fiction. Ranger Ben Carter lost to the elements. Julian West still missing, case inactive. For the outside world, it was a tragedy, another sad statistic in the annals of wilderness recreation. For me, it was the beginning of a different kind of haunting. The forest had taken Ben, but it had left a piece of itself inside me. I was diagnosed with severe PTSD. The nightmares were relentless, filled with the impossible humming sound that vibrated in my bones, and the sight of Ben's features blurring, his humanity dissolving into the pristine white of the stairs. During the day, I was plagued by hypervigilance. Every rustle of leaves outside my window, every shadow in my peripheral vision, sent a jolt of pure adrenaline through me. The world felt thin, a fragile veneer, over a reality of wrong geometry and ancient, hungry things. I took a leave of absence, unable to bear the thought of putting on the uniform. Maria had quit the volunteer service altogether. We met once for coffee. 2 survivors of a shipwreck no one else knew had happened. We didn't speak of the stairs, or the photo, or Ben. We didn't have to. We saw the same hollowed out terror reflected in each other's eyes. It was a shared trauma that was too vast and too insane for words. 6 months after the incident, I was trying to piece my life back together when the call came. It was my old supervisor, Mark. His voice was grim. A family of 4, the Petersons, parents and 2 young children, had vanished. Their minivan was found at the Hoh River, trailhead, same as Julian's. An initial hasty search had found nothing. They were organizing a full-scale operation. Mark wanted me to come in to consult on the search plan. "You know that area better than anyone, Alex," he said. "We need your eyes on the map." The blood drained from my face. It was happening again. The forest was Humphrey again. A cold, rational part of my mind. The part that had survived the woods shock. knew what I had to do. I couldn't tell them the truth. They'd have me committed. But I couldn't let them walk into that trap blind. I was the only one who knew the real terrain. The one who knew that the greatest hazard in that forest wasn't a cliff or a river, but a place that shouldn't exist. "I'll do more than that," I said, my voice a stranger to my own ears. "I'm coming with you." Returning to that forest was like willingly walking back into my own nightmare. The moment I stepped under the canopy, the familiar, oppressive silence descended. It was the silence of a predator that has been waiting. The air was thick, the green light lurid and suffocating. Every tree looked like a sentinel, every shadow a lurking threat. The new search team was competent and professional, but they were operating in a world of maps and compasses. I was operating in a world of malevolent intelligence and broken physics. I led them on a path that deliberately skirted the area where we'd found the stairs, using my knowledge to guide them through the most difficult terrain, hoping to find the family before they stumbled into the forest's parlor. But on the second day, as a cold, thick fog rolled in, I knew we were being herded. The paths seemed to slightly shift. The silence deepened. And then, through the mist, I saw it. The staircase. It stood in the same clearing, pristine and untouched. But this time, something was different. At the top, shrouded in the swirling fog, stood the faint silhouettes of a man, a woman, and two small children. The Peterson family. They were motionless, silent. And the humming began. It was the same soul, deep vibration, but this time it was laced with a new sound. The faint, happy laughter of children. It was a lure of agonizing perfection, designed to prey on the hope and duty of a rescuer. The other rangers froze, their faces a mixture of disbelief and awe. I saw one of them, a young woman, take an instinctive step forward. "No." The word tore from my throat. I grabbed her arm, my grip like iron. "Don't look. Don't listen. It's a trap." The figures at the top of the stairs turned toward us. The man's voice, hollow and melodic, echoed through the clearing. "It's okay," he sang, the voice layered and wrong, just like Ben's had been. "We're safe now. Come up. It's so peaceful here." This was the true nature of the horror. It didn't just kill you, it absorbed you. It used your memory, your love, your hope, as bait for the next victim. Julian, and now the Petersons, had become part of the forest's monstrous anatomy, puppets in its eternal hunt. But this time, I wasn't paralyzed by fear. I was filled with a cold, burning rage. I would not let it have anyone else. I couldn't destroy it, but I could refuse to play its game. "Everyone back away," I commanded, my voice ringing with an authority I didn't know I possessed. Slowly. "Do not look at the top of the stairs. Look at the ground. Follow me." I turned my back on the impossible sight, on the siren song of the lost family, and began to walk away. It was the hardest thing I have ever done. Every instinct screamed at me to save them, but the rational survivor in my head knew they were already gone. The humming intensified, the laughter turning into a sound of pleading, then frustration, then a shriek of pure, inhuman rage that seemed to shake the trees themselves. We made it out. The official search was eventually called off. The Peterson family joined Julian, West, and Ben Carter on the list of the lost. I didn't quit the service. I returned, but I was a different man. I am no longer a ranger who serves the public. I am a guardian. I patrol the boundaries of that section of the forest, my face grim, my eyes hard. I am the one who closes trails for maintenance that never ends. I am the one who creates diversions, who warns hikers away with stories of landslides or aggressive bears. I am the lie that protects the innocent from the truth. I have a new, secret, and eternal duty to stand at the threshold of that hungry place, to be the keeper of a prison made of trees. The forest is still there. It is still watching, and I am watching it back.